Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins in 2019 with a world recovering from a nuclear holocaust. A caravan are following a radio broadcast towards a city of survivors but decided to take rest at this muddy Italian quarry for the entire movie. Nearby are a group of puffy shoulder pad wearing cultists who drive around in tricked out dune buggies and do the Wakanda salute. They're called Templars and blame the entire human race for the apocalypse, so drive around exacting revenge on anyone they see. This is all in the name of a leader simply called the One, who sends out his parrot-headed second-in-command Mako and Top-Knot having associate Shadow. They spot the caravan first because their lookout has the worst vantage point and the slowest head swivel of all the guards. Spotting their flamboyant oppressors, the junkyard hippies circle the wagons against this raiding party of armored buggies and dirt bikes. Both sides fire lasers from basic-looking guns and the Templars pull off a Dukes of Hazzard to breach the keg fort. They use explosives hurled from repeated stunts and have contraptions attached to their vehicles like spears and flamethrowers. Mako has a side-mounted fan because it's hot in the wasteland, but it can also chop off heads if the pedestrian is 3 feet tall. He then deploys a rocket launcher to destroy the entire caravan in seconds, and he could have opened with that. Since all these people had were books, the Templars take them back for the One to tear the hardcovers in half because that always impresses the kids. He's also trying to rebrand the Templars as the Ministers of Revenge, but it isn't catching on and nobody even likes him. For example, Mako's next in line to rule because he owns the world's entire supply of purple hair dye, but he still conspires to kill the One. Elsewhere in the exact same quarry is our protagonist Scorpion, who drives around in a Pontiac Firebird with a dorky bubble dome. It completely gives away his position at night as he drives around and comes across the aftermath of a Templar raid. A flock of scavengers wearing sandwich wraps hide when our hero arrives to search wreckages for any carburetors. The trashbag bandits think they can take this lone man, so they rush him one at a time, and after shooting 6 of them, the next guy thinks he's got this. But he doesn't, and Scorpion hears a mortally wounded man crying out for the sweet release of plasma to the face. He puts him out of his misery, then goes to his mechanics only to be ambushed by a slingshot firing exploding rocks. This was simply his mechanic, who's only 11 years old and was just practicing defending himself should a purple nurple ever come over that horizon. The young mechanic maintains Scorpion's vehicle, which explains the playground on the roof but not the ear under the hood. He can also drive better than the protagonist and collects Templar skulls like their Pokemon cards, so Scorp leaves before this kid steals the show. Meanwhile, Shadow asks his boss why can't we kill Scorpion, but he makes him ask it again through a freshly blasted laser hole. He then doesn't even answer, so the raiding party leaves while the One remains here because he wasn't paid for the next scene. The Templars come across a Wasteland Winnie on the way to the radio signal, so they jam it in the rear with a burning spear, producing a man and a woman. Since we already have enough dudes in this movie, Shadow impales Joe Blow on the end of his Poe while Mako captures the female in a net. Scorpion knows the value of a woman in the wasteland, so he white knights his way in because he was in fact once a white knight himself. The former Templar plays an ironic game of chicken with the rooster-headed Templar in which they fight over a woman in the way. Before they both crash into a fiery blaze, Shadow buggy blocks them like he's holding back 2 kids fighting on the playground. He punches Brohawk because screw that guy anyway, and asks Scorpion to join them again because his gun has that funky finger guard. Our boy just came for the girl, so Shadow lets him leave for whatever reason, and we learn that the babe from the Badlands is named Alma. She decides to team up with Scorpion because his bubble car can perfectly accommodate that high-rise on her head, and when the sun sets, the hero cops a feel. He claims to have just been checking Alma for injuries, so to repay the stranger for his kindness, she lets him hit it in a clear tent. The next morning the pair get ambushed by Mako, who got so discombobulated by Shadow's punch that he's taking it out on the wrong person. When a magnetic bomb hits his door, Scorpion launches the whole thing off with a single press of a button, which is definitely something a child mechanic would install. Now he has no door for the remainder of the movie, however, so he jumps out and runs away on foot, leaving Alma completely exposed. Scorpion almost gets blasted into oblivion, and we get some nice mannequin work this time, unlike that crap in the beginning. Our hero heroically flees while Mako tries to run him down in the same familiar quarry, but a mustachioed archer arrives to save the day. Nadir has been following our protagonist around and even peeped the show last night, so he saves Scorpion by blowing a hole in the ground. The hero heroically hides inside, then leaps on the buggy when it passes and destroys the pedestrian control device. We then get quite a lot of disturbingly low angles of our hero as he muscles Mako out of his own vehicle by channeling his crazy eyes. He gets jammed up under the moving vehicle and looks like he probably won't survive, so Scorpion tells the last guy to scrape up his buddy and go home. Nadir then pulls up in his dune buggy, both wearing giant groin guards, and gives us no backstory as to why he shadows our protagonist. He just teams up with the pair probably because he recognizes Alma as Miss Italy 1977 and she aged wonderfully. His whole thing is about being the toughest man in the Wasteland, so I think Scorpion just avoids him because he's too intense. Alma's still weak from being turned into a teabag earlier, so Nadir tells the pair to follow him to another caravan of survivors. They're led by the humbly named Moses, who's leading his people to the promised land when these troublemakers arrive. Everybody is standoffish, but when Moses notices Alma, he invites the trio to join his caravan because I think he's hoping to part them seas. Meanwhile, the shoulder pads hold a funeral for Mako in which they suspend his body from a rope ladder above a fireplace. All of these nutjobs stand around chanting hate, hate and exterminate while burning the still living messenger along with the mohawk. Meanwhile, Nadir meets a young woman named Vinya who acts very robotic, though I'm not sure if that's the character. She's drunk on some tonic so that Nadir can have his way with her, as this Moses guy is like some wasteland pimp. They're also very religious though, which is something Nadir has never heard of before, probably because the one keeps ripping up all the Bibles. While Nadir sheathes his arrow in this quiver, we see the peeper caressing the furry wall turns out to be Scorpion. It's payback for last night, I suppose, and he asks Nadir if he's going to come, but he will just catch up later, meaning that he is.
Bye.
Scorpion then asks a recovered Alma if she's ready to go, but she says Alma going to stay right here and do the whole born-again Christian thing. Luckily they both chose to stay away from this guy because he's immediately captured by the Templars instead of just running them over. They take the elusive protagonist back to their camp, where it appears like the one is going to kill Scorpion himself, which would be better than what happens. He uses this wild contraption developed by Ben Dover on Scorpion, then makes his men watch so you can see why they hate him. Every Templar that's died trying to capture this guy alive was for this exact moment, because afterwards he tells Shadow to finish him off. You'll be pleased to know that he means kill him, and this guy has been waiting for so long to do it himself, but he just leaves 3 randoms to do it instead. He joins the rest of the party as they raid Moses' caravan, but these people are so weak that we just cut to them all captured. The writing then dictates that these 3 inept executioners untie Scorpion and begin dragging him around an easily escapable situation. Nadir shows up with his wacky racer and takes about a full minute to load a single arrow, but still manages to blow up the Templars before the sun sets. He then takes Scorpion to the young mechanic, who repairs his car and any wounds that are above the waist or below the knees. The broken tailbone will take some time, as our violated hero was rear-ended so hard that he now struggles to draw his gun. In the morning, the kid creates a clear chest plate for Scorpion, which would have been more comfortable with an undershirt. He pulls up and challenges the one to a duel, but then stands right behind a piece of metal that perfectly frames only the hidden armor. The one shoots him in the chest and there's the big armor reveal, but we establish that this gun goes through metal, so Scorpion is lucky he didn't take a plasma load to the face. This leads to Nadir and the kid blowing up puffy-shouldered cultists until their leader runs away because one's outnumbered 20-3. Shadow remains here to shoot the hostages, and Moses takes a bullet for Alma because he definitely wanted to take his sandals off at that burning bush. Scorpion peers down a pipe like the intro to every James Bond movie and blasts Shadow in the face with a laser. With every other Templar being killed by the spin-off that never happened, Scorpion gets in his Hot Wheel and chases after his abuser. He had the mechanic install a drill on the Pontiac so that he could literally run this thing right up the one's backside. Once he's adequately been churned inside out, the street turns into the cliffs of convenience and the one crashes into it. Scorpion returns to the caravan and tells Nadir that he still doesn't want to be his friend, but this guy doesn't care as he got himself a girl. Alma's looking healthy and hairy, while the mechanic wants somebody to hold his hand because he's 11 and just killed 20 people. And the movie ends.